Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
You know what? I've been sitting here for the last hour, going through all these reports, and I'm just going to say it straight up. Bo Bichette is done in Toronto. I know that's tough to hear. I know some of you are probably already typing angry comments, but hear me out, because the evidence is stacking up in a way we just can't ignore anymore. And honestly, it might not even be a bad thing. Let me explain exactly what's happening right now with the Blue Jays, because there's so much more going on beneath the surface than most people realize. So before I dive into all the Bo Bichette stuff, make sure you're subscribed, because we're in the thick of free agency right now, and things are moving fast. I'm putting out updates constantly, and you don't want to miss what could be some franchise-altering moves here. All right, let's get into this. Everyone's been obsessing over Kyle Tucker, right? Every Blue Jays fan is refreshing Twitter every 5 minutes waiting for that Tucker news. But while we've all been distracted by that pursuit, there's been this steady drip of reports about Bo Bichette that have gone somewhat under the radar. And when you start connecting the dots, it paints a pretty clear picture. It started with Mitch Bannon's report. Now, Mitch is as plugged in as they come, and he dropped this line about how after signing Ohtani, a reunion with Bichette appears increasingly unlikely. That's a pretty definitive statement from someone who doesn't throw things out there carelessly. But okay, that's one report. You could maybe dismiss it as speculation. Then Ken Rosenthal jumps in, and now we're talking about one of the most respected voices in baseball. Rosenthal said that Ernie Clement would only be squeezed for playing time if the Blue Jays re-signed Bo Bichette, which he also believes is increasingly unlikely. That's two major insiders essentially saying the same thing within hours of each other. And it didn't stop there. Bob Nightengale, who covers the entire league, comes out and says the Blue Jays still have the door wide open for Bichette to return, but considering they couldn't work out an extension and have gotten nowhere in 2 months of talks, a reunion appears more unlikely by the day. Then, Ben Nicholson-Smith, who literally covers this team day in and day out, echoes similar sentiments. When you have this many respected voices all singing the same tune, you have to start taking it seriously. Here's what I think is really happening. The Ohtani signing was the turning point. Before that deal, I genuinely believe the Blue Jays were trying to figure out how to keep both Bo and land Tucker. They were trying to have their cake and eat it too. But once they committed to Ohtani, something shifted in their thinking. And honestly, it makes sense when you break it down. Ohtani is listed as their third baseman. He's going to be playing every day at third base. You can move Ernie Clement around between short and second, maybe some first base. He's versatile enough to handle that. You can even experiment with Ohtani in left field for favorable matchups. The flexibility is there. But here's where it gets complicated with Bo. If you bring Bichette back, you're not just adding another infielder to the mix. You need him to agree to play second base, which we're not even entirely sure he's willing to do long-term. Then, you're limiting Addison Barge's development time. You're creating this logjam where Ernie Clement, who was fantastic last year, suddenly has nowhere to play regularly. And yeah, I know some people are saying Clement's playing time shouldn't be the priority if you're bringing back a talent like Bichette, and that's fair. But it speaks to a larger organizational philosophy shift that I think is happening. The front office is clearly prioritizing fit and flexibility over just accumulating talent. And when you look at Kyle Tucker versus Bo Bichette in that context, Tucker is the obvious choice. Tucker is a left-handed bat in a lineup that desperately needs that balance. He slots seamlessly into the outfield, which is an area of need. You move Dalton Varsho or Nathan Lukes, which isn't complicated from a roster construction standpoint. Tucker's fit is clean. Bichette's fit is messy. And let's talk about the future here for a second, because this isn't just about next season. George Springer is approaching the final year of his deal. Varsho's timeline is similar. As Springer potentially fades out, whether he re-signs or not, the Blue Jays need to think about who the face of their outfield is for the next decade. Kyle Tucker could be that guy. A generational talent locked into a long-term mega deal alongside Vladimir Guerrero Jr. That's your core. That's your identity. That's what you build around. Bichette? Look, I love Bo, we all do. Watching him come up through the system, seeing him alongside Vladdy, the hair, the energy, all of it. But his fit for the long-term future is just more complicated. You'd have to make significant moves to accommodate him. Ben Nicholson-Smith mentioned that the Jays would likely need to trade someone like Anthony Santander, who still has 4 years left on his deal, just to open up room for Bichette. That's not impossible, but it's not seamless either. Now, there is a scenario where this could still work. If Bichette is willing to take a shorter deal with opt-outs, similar to what Alex Bregman did last year with that 3-year contract with annual opt-outs, maybe the Jays could make it work. Or if they don't land Tucker and suddenly have all this money available, maybe they throw it all at Bo on a short-term high-value deal. But those feel like Plan B or Plan C scenarios at this point. The momentum is clearly toward Tucker. And you know what's interesting? The Jays were supposedly still involved in the Alex Bregman market, but I think that's just them driving up the price for other teams. I don't see any realistic scenario where Bregman ends up in Toronto now. Where would he even play? He hasn't played second base, so he'd have to be at third, which means moving Ohtani to left field full-time, and that just seems unnecessarily complicated when you could pursue Tucker or circle back to Bo if necessary. Let me shift gears for a second because there's another development that's actually pretty significant for the Blue Jays, even though it doesn't directly involve them. The Chicago Cubs just acquired Edward Cabrera from the Miami Marlins. They gave